everybody.
The Ravens are probably going to win. They have one of the best offenses in history right now.
Lamar Jackson is a more explosive.
I think Baltimore pulls it out.
Nothing to work with. Pile driven by the rookie. Goedert, tiptoes, touchdown, Philadelphia. Saquon. Oh, here he goes. And the touchdown!
This is a big win for this team.
Yes, it is.
There we go. Who doesn't love a regular Eagles hype video, regardless of the opponent? I actually played the wrong one. But how's everybody doing? Shout out to the chat. Thomas, we got some big news here. The best news, we knew it was going to eventually happen, but Jalen Hurts will be back today at practice. How about that?
Yeah, not a surprise. I mean, literally, if you've watched your show or my show over the past week and didn't listen to any sort of national media shows, you would have known that, yes, Jalen Hurts literally could not clear concussion protocol until he actually went through a practice. And the Birds don't practice until Wednesdays during the NFL schedule, the NFL week. So here we are on Wednesday, and guess what? Nick Sirianni confirmed a couple of minutes ago, Jalen Hurts will practice today. It'll be a fully padded practice at Lincoln Financial Field. More on that in a second, Josh. And it will be Jalen Hurts' first practice since suffering the concussion. He'll be limited today. Worth noting, if you see Jalen Hurts was limited at practice today, he has to be. He has to be limited. He has to go through a full practice. Then he has to spend the night, or I should say, go through a whole evening, fall asleep, wake up the next day, confirm he has no more symptoms, and then Thursday's practice, he should be a full participant. So not a surprise at all, but here we are. The Eagles are practicing back at the Linc today, and Jalen Hurts will be their quarterback.
How about that? Truth be told said, yeah, they blow everything out of proportion as far as the media reports and everything else. It's, go figure, right? We have something, especially national media. What are they going to talk about? Everybody can see on the screen, too, officially, there's the press conference report from Tim McManus. Jalen Hurts is practicing today, as Nick Sirianni said. And again, it's like, okay, he's going to get in, like you said, Thomas, the limited participant most likely is what we'll see. He's still going through the full clearance of the concussion protocol. But the fact that he's just out there getting in some drill work, being able to get acclimated, he'll get a chance to get in a full practice as well on probably Thursday, do a little bit of a Friday walkthrough, good to go for the game. I mean, it's like we say, best case scenario, get him out there. This team is clearly different whenever everybody knows this, but clearly different when you have Jalen Hurts. It's great that Tanner McKee got some reps. It's great that Kenny Pickett got some reps. They can go in if you need them. But, I mean, come on. We're not fooling anybody. Everybody knows this. Jalen Hurts is the guy who takes it to the next level. And, as we say, fantastic news. He's been in the building. I think you and I got a lot of comments. I was seeing comments on your show as well. But, like, there's some people going like, yeah, but there's going to be some rust and all this stuff. Maybe not. But at the same time, he's not like he's been hidden in a dark closet somewhere. Like, oh, gosh, nobody talk to Jalen. Don't talk about the game plan. Don't get prepped for this thing. Like, he's ready. He should be ready to go. I don't think I'm buying this whole rust factor to the extreme or anything that people are freaking out about.
Yeah, last year, or I should say 2 years ago, in the 2022 season, Hurts went down in the Bears game late in the season with that shoulder injury and played one game, the Week 18 game, in the span of 34 days in terms of missing a bunch of different, obviously games against the Saints, and then they had the bye week, and then he came out and had his best playoff game besides the Super Bowl. I mean, it was way better than, I would say, the Niner game where they dismantled the Giants in the divisional round. So rust to me is not going to be a factor. He's been in the building. He's been prepping. I guarantee you, if last week mattered, if they were going to have a chance to go and get the one-seeder, they needed to win to get in, Hurts would have played. And so not a big deal, Josh. I'm very curious, though, moving over to the other injured players that have been on the injury report the past couple of weeks. Nakobe Dean is my main guy to circle on today. What does Nakobe Dean do in terms of practice as he missed the previous game, or I guess the past two? If Nakobe Dean is healthy and he plays on Sunday, all 22 starters from Philadelphia are going to be out there and playing. Obviously, the Packers can't say that. The Eagles are getting healthy at just the right time. And honestly, I'm feeling pretty darn good about this Sunday matchup versus Green Bay.
I am too, yeah. You bring up a great point, because who can say that, right? Like, who could say, yeah, we got, 22 guys, like all 11 on both sides, offense and defense. I think that we will. I mean, just, speculating here. But, like, Nakobe got in, I believe, a limited practice last week. If he needed to go, he probably could have played in that game.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the fact that you've got guys rested. I see a couple comments here. This is actually great. Rested, not rusted. So there
you go.
Maybe an extra phrase for how the squad's going to play and everything else there. But absolutely, Nakobe Dean, just another step. You take with Zach Bond. You do still have the depth, though. I mean, Oren Burks, 17 tackles against the Giants. It is the Giants, but still 17 tackles, and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. playing well. This squad is insane with the depth and everything else. But yeah, I mean, if they get all 22, no other team can say that. It's just it's a definite mismatch.
Rested is something people are really glossing over because every single season, everyone fights to beat the 1 seed because they are dying for that extra week, the bye week, to go ahead and rest their players. And yet, if you're not the 1 seed and you choose to rest players in week 18, especially in Philadelphia, it's like, oh my gosh, you're going to be so rusty 2 weeks from your previous football game. It's going to be a massive problem. And yet, we forget the Eagles had the earliest bye out of any team in the National Football League. The week 5 bye, it's like 3 months ago now at this point. They have not had a break in like 12 straight weeks. And so everybody, including Saquon Barkley, who rested last week versus the Giants, is going to be as fresh as you physically and possibly can be. And it's not like you said, Jalen Hurts is hiding in a closet with the lights turned off, or Saquon Barkley sitting at home playing Madden. They have been in the building. They're getting treatment. They're prepping for the Green Bay Packers. You have to assume they probably figured they were going to play Green Bay and had a whole prep work starting a couple of weeks ago. They're going to be as fresh and ready to go as possible, whereas Green Bay is not, Josh. Green Bay, I mean, not only did they lose to the Chicago Bears this past week, but it was a hard-fought game, a physical game. Jordan Love got hurt. Christian Watson done for the season. They are coming off of not only a stretch of games where they had to play a bunch in a row, but now they get no rest and they face the number 1 defense and the number 1 rushing offense in the National Football League.
Yeah, would not be. I mean, if you give me 2 scenarios, would not want to be obviously Green Bay and 11-6. I mean, I played a clip of Chris Broussard being like, I'm not, scared. I'm terrified, or I'm not worried. I'm terrified. But yeah, I've got family, in-laws, Packers fans. My wife, she's kind of like borderline. I appreciate it now too, because she's kind of like coming over on the Eagles side naturally, right? I mean, we're got an Eagles channel and everything else. But she was like, yeah, I might be leaning in that direction. But it's a much more difficult path. You look at what Christian Watson means to the Packers, and you did a great show.
Oh, you muted yourself.
Oh, okay.
Can't hear you.
Okay,
there you go.
Okay,
you're
back.
back.
Whenever I go back and forth between the videos, it does that. But as you say, you did a great breakdown of Christian Watson, and when he's on the field, their big play opportunities is fantastic, but it also helps the running game because you have that extra facet. Whenever it's not, I mean, Josh Jacobs has been incredible, especially as of late for the Packers. But if it's a little bit more one-dimensional and you're asking Jordan Love to beat you, he's kind of taken a little bit of a step back from last season. I don't know if it's defense is figuring out or just him kind of a little bit of a regression, but it is. I mean, I don't think you want to go up against the number 1 defense in the league. They've got a game plan for it. It ultimately comes down to the run stopping, and there's so many different areas that we could keep on bringing up. But to me, it's like Jordan Davis and the fact that he has really vaulted himself further, and it's been under the radar for a lot of the season, but lately, and I think it's more important than maybe some people realize, the fact that he actually did play against the Giants because he got that work in. You're staying in shape. And it's also just a little bit of a reminder okay, hey, you know what? JD getting out there, playing some plays, stopping the run. It's going to be huge against the Packers. And I think Fangio just said, you know what? Let's get you out there right there. Let's make sure you're ready. You can't rest everyone. And we'll be ready for Josh Jacobs because of it. You throw in Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, which, again, we said hopefully expecting him to be healthy, and you have a full 11. I mean, I don't know what team wants to play Philly at this point. It's totally understandable with the squad they have and the rest.
Josh Jacobs is really the X factor in this football game. If Josh Jacobs goes for over 120 yards, multiple rushing touchdowns, Green Bay is going to be in this. I still think Philadelphia would win it. But if the Eagles' rush defense can keep Jacobs under 80 yards, under 70 yards, this is going to be a blowout because that means they're throwing the football, especially late in the fourth quarter with Jordan Love and the Packer receivers. And the Christian Watson injury, if you look at the stats, Josh, and I was doing my whole show on this like you mentioned a couple days ago, the stats of Christian Watson aren't that great this year. It's a very kind of, average receiving numbers, like 50 catches, 600, 700 yards, couple of touchdowns. But what he does in terms of scheme allows you to run the football because you're worried about the over-the-top threat of Christian Watson. They don't really have anybody else that can do that. Romeo Doubs is a very much a reception receiver across the middle, running his drag routes and his slant routes. And then Jalen Reed, who obviously had a very big game the first time we played down in Brazil, more of that kind of gadget player. He's more of a, end around, more of a cross across the middle catch and run. He's not a deep vertical threat. And so with the vertical threat gone now, unfortunately, we don't wish injury on anybody, but Watson's not going to be there on Sunday. Philadelphia's defense can compress a little bit. They can move in. They can load the box. And if you force Jordan Love to throw, I really think good things are going to happen, because you mentioned it, right? Jordan Love's a great quarterback. I think he's a star quarterback. I think he can be a Pro Bowl quarterback in this league. And he got hot at the end of last year. He's not been hot at the end of this year. He has definitely made some questionable throws. He's turning the football over at a very high rate, and he's not as mobile as I think a lot of people think. He's an average mobility in terms of a quarterback in the NFL in modern times. And so if the Eagles are forcing him to throw 45 times on Sunday, you have to believe the Eagles secondary is going to get one or two of those. And if they create a bunch of turnovers, get a couple of sacks, I really think this thing could snowball in the Eagles' favor in a very big way.
Absolutely, yes. Because another thing that I think about, and going back, I mean, I'm sure we're all doing this at this point, because you're like, okay, I remember week 1, but not really, right? Because it's so far or so long ago, and there's so many things that took place between that. So, like, I'm going back and rewatching the game and, like, looking at the stats and other highlights and how the game took place and all this other stuff. The Eagles lost a turnover battle. Like, you don't win a whole lot of games, especially between two good teams, when you lose the turnover battle, especially by more than 2 turnovers, or at least 2 turnovers. The Eagles had 3 turnovers in the game. The Packers had 1. And if you look at it, too, I mean, kudos to the defense, because they weren't necessarily where they are now, obviously, but they did play somewhat well, because you had Jalen Hurts turning the football over very close, and all of a sudden Packers have the ball in the red zone. They couldn't score a touchdown. They got, I think 2 field goals out of it early on. And then Jalen Hurts threw another interception in the red zone on a pass to AJ. We can argue whether or not it was his fault. It resulted in a turnover nonetheless.
Right.
But you have 3 turnovers, and you still escape with a win. So, Thomas, you said it there. I mean, if it does come down to turnovers and protecting the football, like, this offense has shown that it's been different, especially these last several games here. And Jalen Hurts made that focus on, hey, I'm going to be conservative with it. Maybe it got a little bit too conservative. He came back out against the Steelers game, proved to everybody that he can still pass the football, even though there were doubters. If this team does not turn the football over, like, I think that's the ultimate. I mean, you could put that right out there, like 1A, 1B, turnovers, and maybe Jake Elliott field goals, because Brandon McManus has been insane at kicking field goals, and Jake Elliott hasn't. So maybe that's a little bit of the equalizer. But if the Eagles don't turn the football over, I just don't know how. Maybe I'm biased, right? Because we're Eagles fans, but so I don't know how they have the firepower really to keep up with this Eagles offense. So I don't know. It's come back to comfortability there.
Well, on the other side of things is that we've seen in the past, over the course of the Eagles, past 2 or 3 deep playoff runs, playing a financial field is extremely difficult because of the snowball effect. Because as soon as the Eagles get rolling, as soon as they go up 7-0 and they get a turnover and it's 14-0, it spirals very quickly. I was at the divisional round game in 2022 whenever they beat up on the Giants, and that game felt over by quarter number 2. You and I were at the NFC Championship game, and that was, 7-7, I think, for a little bit, and then the strip sack of Purdy blew things wide open. Philadelphia never looked back, and we've seen this time and time again where very good football teams, and the Packers are, come to Philadelphia, get off to a slow start, maybe they have a turnover, maybe Saquon breaks a 60-yarder early in the first quarter, and after that, the Linc's rocking so loud, you just can't dig yourself out of the trench. And so I think that's kind of how this game is going, in my opinion. Now, could the Eagles start slow, Josh? Absolutely. We talk about rest versus rust. There's still a chance of rust. And we saw Jalen Hurts in that Packer game you just mentioned was awful early on. You remember when Saquon slips on that first play, and then he throws that really bad interception, and then he gets the strip sack, and it was like things are getting ugly very, very quickly. And yet they were able to steady the ship because of how good the defense has played. And I think if the defense does anything remotely close to what they've done the past 12 weeks, the offense can take a quarter to go ahead and get rolling and still find a way to put up 30 points by the end of it.
Sorry, I was trying to get that. There we go. No, I'm totally with you. Yeah, it just, the part that you rely on, and again, for people, I see some comments and questions. Jalen Hurts will officially be at practice. We're curious to what extent, but Tim McManus and many others reported, as Nick Sirianni said at the press conference. You can go back and start this thing over, too, to get the full recap there. But as far as the rust and everything else, like, it comes back to me for the defense, as you're saying on that side, like, they've got the confidence. And with the youth, too, I mean, this is the youngest defense in the NFL. Like, that's the amazing part as well. And it's like, as you've gone on week after week, They've proven it. But more importantly to me is like not just proving it, but like, or maybe proving it, but proving it to themselves. Like you could see that confidence build. And, you know, we talk about like hey, the Jaden Reed, and he had a big game, Christian Watson effect. He won't be there. I mean, the biggest X factor personally on defense is Cooper DeJean. Like for me, if we look at it, he was not in that game in Brazil, and we saw the drastic difference. Nobody needs to be told this, right? Like Avonte Maddox versus Cooper DeJean, but still, like when you say that, that is a massive difference. We've seen what Cooper DeJean does. The fact that the Eagles have been able to play in nickel has been the difference maker of all difference makers. And so you say like, hey, look, if the Eagles can turn this, especially if they get up early, like if they get up early, then it's a completely different ball because they can't keep running with Josh Jacobs. They got to start throwing the football more. But if they get stops against the run in the nickel because Cooper DeJean can come down and play that hybrid linebacker spot, I mean, it's a total wrap. So as much as, yes, there's areas where, you know, Fangio, and I'm not going to lie, there's still a little bit of anxiety because you and I have texted about this offline too. Like, man, you know, there's just that element, right? Because you go into a playoff game, you have the anxiety to it. But Packers fan and Packers coaching staff has got to be having nightmares to say, how do we game plan? Because if something goes wrong, right, how do we morph this thing? And if they can't run the football with Josh Jacobs, I don't know. I mean, it's a defense that is very solid, very much in tune. They've got the confidence. They've been battle tested. They played against some of the best teams there. They've won 5-2 against playoff teams. Packers 2-5. I mean, 1-5 in the division. Yes, their division is good, but I think it speaks for itself. There's a clear difference and there's a clear advantage. It just comes down to, can the Eagles make plays and don't shoot yourself in the foot?
I totally agree. I'm seeing people saying that we're cutting in and out. I
can hear you okay. I haven't seen it on
I haven't
my
seen
side
that at all.
Hopefully not.
Okay, we'll see. It's fine on my computer for some reason is what people are saying. So let us know what you guys think down below in the comments. I'm checking right now, and Josh sounds fine to me in terms of watching it live, so I don't see any issue, but we'll see what people say down below in the comment section. You even go back to your mic is cutting out, bro. Which person's mic? Let us know. Which one? Whose person's mic is cutting out? Is it mine or is it Josh's? That's what I want to know. Some people saying it's fine.
Might be. Yeah, I'm getting some people that saying they're fine and some people saying technical difficulties. So
I'm watching it back on my channel right now. There, it's fine.
Okay. Somebody said
they
restarted on YouTube and it's working fine now. So.
There we go. We're good. Okay, I think we're fine. I was seeing that.
You
never know. You never know. Refresh your stream if we're cutting out right now. But none. We good. Sounds good. Okay.
Appreciate you guys.
And then there's a super
Keeping
chat
us
here
honest.
from Mr. Manu saying audio is cutting out, fellas. So mic sounds fine. Yeah, you got to refresh the stream right now. Got to refresh the stream. That should get everything good to go here. One big thing about the first time we even matched up against the Packers like 9 years ago, Josh, in that week 1 game down in Brazil, Jalen Carter didn't play that great. Nolan Smith was virtually non-existent. He didn't even really start in that football game.
Yeah.
Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, like the entire defensive line was not that good, and yet they still won the game. I can only imagine against the pretty not so great Packer offensive line what the Eagle defensive line now, especially fresh, with a week off, can look like against Jordan Love. It could be a massive difference in terms of getting after Jordan Love, something they didn't do a very good job of in the week 1 matchup in Brazil.
Yeah, it was a slip and slide. I mean, basically, right? Because we had the guys all over the place. The viral clips of Bryce Huff and his opportunity that was not a whole lot in Brazil. And naturally, we saw things from Nolan Smith afterward and several other guys. But you're right. You get a home field advantage. We shouldn't have an issue with the grass, with the slipping and sliding. It's going to be cold, right? And there also should maybe a little bit of precipitation, but ultimately, I mean, that should be a bigger difference maker. This Eagles team has been able to get pressure on the opposing quarterback. Jordan Love has not been good. I mean, it's difficult for a lot of quarterbacks, but especially when you break it down and see when he faces pressure, he's thrown a lot of, it's a little bit of an arbitrary stat. They say bad throw percentage. I don't know what classifies as a bad throw. I mean, I guess it's not close-ish for the receiver, but regardless, wherever that falls, he's been terrible in terms of throwing in accuracy whenever he's pressured. So I think you're right. That's another piece to watch and focus on because we didn't see it. It was basically, aside from the turnovers, I mean, kind of both offenses take what you want because as long as you can get just a little bit of blocking, which is easier whenever the guys are slipping, they were going to have an open guy down the field or running the football. I mean, it's make one cut and you're gone. So should be a little bit different. I'm feeling like it's going to be, I don't know, tell me if you think I'm wrong. I'm feeling like it's going to be I don't know if it's significantly lower than the first matchup, but I do think it's going to be a lower scoring game than what we saw the first time, which was 34-29 for those that are not as refresh in memory. But I don't know. What do you think? You think you still get an offensive shootout per se?
I don't know about shootout. I think our offense is going to do just fine. I think Philadelphia will get to 30. I think Green Bay's probably hovering about 21 in my eyes right now. I think 31-21 is a very likely overall, prediction as of Wednesday. Things can change, and I think that is a good segue and a reset in terms of things changing. Jalen Hurts obviously is going to practice here in about an hour and 15 minutes. Philadelphia will be out there at the Linc today, Josh, which is very interesting, versus practicing, obviously, the NovaCare complex. And the main reason, if you didn't watch my show on Monday, they have refielded or returfed, or whatever you want to call it, Lincoln Financial Field. After the Week 18 home game against the Giants, they ripped up the entire field. They put down brand new sod, brand new, it's obviously real grass at the Linc. And so they want the players to get a chance to actually play on the new field and run around on the new field before the game on Sunday, which, 18 weeks, obviously not all of those are at home, but the turf takes a lot of beating. Obviously, Temple plays there as well. Getting a fresh overall turf and getting to practice on it, unlike the Packers will this week, it's a subtle thing, but it's something that is definitely noteworthy and I think benefits Philadelphia.
Yeah, if anybody deserves that, it's us, right? I mean, you got home field advantage, and then you look at the other instances, other playoff run, Super Bowl matchup, and everything like that. But it's a good point. I mean, every little bit that you can, why not? It's home field advantage for a reason, so I'm all for it. I like to see it, and like just the ambience will probably pump a little bit of sound in there. Not that it's going to be a negative for the Eagles, but just a little bit to get the guys ready, the feel of the game, what it's going to be like, get out there in the cold, the elements and everything else. So get Jake some opportunities to kick some field goals. Are you concerned? I know we brought this up too, but like, are you concerned, and if you are, maybe what level? If Jake Elliott needs to make a field goal, and it's I'm not going to say 50 because there we go to 50 yards, but let's say it's like a 45-yard attempt from Jake Elliott to win the football game. It's closer than we expected, right? It's late in the game. It's a good thing they're practicing today because, yes, they can get a little bit more element there and hopefully get dialed in. But still, it's 45-yard attempt, Eagles down by 1, Jake Elliott, field goal to win.
I hope so. I hope that he's the one kicking off during the actual start of the football game, too. That clearly made a difference whenever they did it 2 games ago versus kind of mixing him in versus the Giants. Very clearly, Jake Elliott is in a rut right now. Let's just hope we don't get to that situation. I think Nick Sirianni last week was trying to get Jake Elliott as many kicks as possible to try to make sure that a confidence is built going into a wild card matchup. And I think Philadelphia has to hope and pray that it is not a close football game where they have to rely on a Jake Elliott field goal in order to win or lose. The best case scenario, Josh, is that they win 27-20, 31-21, 31-17, and Elliott kicks a bunch of extra points and nails 1 or 2 field goals. Makes both of them and then roll into the divisional round ready to go. Because, and we can get into this in a second, but the divisional round, not looking too far ahead, can be fascinating in terms of who you play. I do want to kind of switch over to the news I just sent you on Twitter, though, Josh, because at the same time Philadelphia is gearing up to practice and we're waiting for Jalen Hurts to go out there, which, if you're joining us, he will be practicing today in a limited fashion, as expected all week if you're watching our shows. Jordan Love, kind of forgot. Jordan Love suffered an elbow injury. A lot of people are saying it's very minor, but he did lose feeling in the entire arm during the game. And the great question is, where's he going to be in terms of his health today at their practice? And pretty interesting note, Josh, if you have this up on the screen here.
Yep.
Jordan Love is practicing today, but they are hiding his ability to throw from the media. We don't know. As Tom Silvers has the tweet here saying Jordan Love elbow is taking part in warmups, but team is making sure media doesn't see whether he can throw by closing practice after the team stretch. Usually you get to see team drills. This happens in Philadelphia too. If you watched our content, what they do is they let the media watch warmups and they let them watch the individual drills. And so you'll see Jalen Hurts, just kind of throwing to one of the staff members, Saquon Barkley, taking some handoffs, but no team stuff because they don't want any sort of, hidden plays to be revealed or whatever. The fact the Packers are hiding Jordan Love throwing the football, they're not going to let the media see him throw. Very interesting, Josh. That's a bigger story than Jalen Hurts playing today because we knew Hurts was going to play. Hiding Jordan Love throwing from the Packer media, red flags and alarm bells should be sounding in every Packers fan's head as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a little bit. There's still time, obviously, but
There's
the
plenty
fact
of
that,
time, but
as you say, the individual drills, you would naturally just go out there. And,
yes.
he said it was like the both fingers, his pinky and ring finger that he completely lost feeling, couldn't grip. So he's trying to throw the football with 3 fingers. You probably, I mean, the fear is if it's like, okay, hey, I can't completely grip a football, you don't go out there and do individual drills and start just throwing the ball into the dirt and then have the media going like, oh my gosh. So instead, just go, well, let's just leave it up as question. But it's still, like then it just feeds into the imagination. You're like, well, can he go? Is he going to be fine? The other question too is Malik Willis. There was concern that he might be limited as well with his injury that he suffered late in the game against Chicago. So, you're right. I mean, we talk about Jalen Hurts, the Eagles' concerns or maybe injuries or later in the concussion protocol or to clear than what we would have hoped or liked. But the Packers, I mean, they're going into it saying, okay, hopefully you've seen multiple reports going like, yeah, Jordan Love should be okay. He should get feeling back in that elbow. But we've seen injuries like that even, this season, Brock Purdy had one, and there was another quarterback, wasn't there? There was 2 quarterbacks that had kind of a similar get hit in the elbow and lose that feeling. Some of them were able to come back and play that week, but the others actually took a rest, I believe. I think it was a shorter week, I think on a Thursday, and they weren't able to grip the football enough. So definitely that combined with cold weather games, something to keep an eye on.
And again, like we said with Jalen Hurts, there are multiple days, and so tomorrow can be completely different. But it is interesting that they're trying to hide the fact that Jordan Love can throw, unless they're trying to do 40 chess and make the Eagles think he can't throw. But the Eagles are obviously prepping for Jordan Love. They expect him to be out there. I'm sure you'll see him limited in today's practice. But if we don't see him throw, my alarm bells will be going off in a big way. And the cold weather's a factor here, Josh, right? Like, I mean,
for
you
sure.
do the experiment yourself right now. I mean, across the country, it's really cold. It's like 30 degrees here in Atlanta. Take a football and go outside and try and throw it for an hour. I mean, it's hard to do. The football's a little slicker. It feels heavier just because of the cold weather, and it's just tougher to grip overall. And if you're having numbness in your hand, numbness in your arm, grip strength's a problem, they could still be trying to desperately work that out. And if you don't see Jordan Love at 100%, Josh, I don't think Green Bay has a real chance in this one. So we'll obviously keep an eye on that. Any ideas or any opinions on how the rest of the NFC Wildcard is going to go? I'm curious to see your thoughts here. Obviously, you have Rams taking on the Commanders, Rams taking on the, I'm blanking on them right now, the
Vikings.
The Vikings, that's right, because they have the 5 seed. The Rams take on the Vikings, Commanders take on the Bucks. I think you could see upsets in both of those games. I'm very curious to see what the Vikings look like against a non-Lions team 1 week after getting destroyed by Detroit, right? Where's their confidence level? Because we were saying that Sam Darnold is like going to get $55 million a year, $60 million a year, and then he gets waxed by Detroit, looks very shaky, and it's like, oh, maybe the same Sam Darnold that couldn't make it anywhere else in the league is not that great. And so I could see them winning just based off of talent. But if they get in a shootout and the Rams score a bunch of points, Minnesota could be in very big trouble, which would almost guarantee the Rams would come to Philadelphia in round 2.
Yeah, it'd be wild, but it's not impossible because, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the schedule out there for people to get the visual. There we go. But yes, the fact that LA has beaten, this is an older graphic. Obviously, they don't have Minnesota, Detroit yet, but it is Minnesota. The fact that the Rams have already beaten Minnesota this year, there's some confidence, as you say. I could definitely see that taking place.
Yep.
It's curious about the Bucks and the Commanders game. Like the Bucks won. We got so many of these matchups though of teams that have already played each other this year, and as much as that can be, some fear or at least a little bit of anxiety creeping into our own personal, look at it for the Eagles. It's similar to like, okay, hey, Eagles beat the Packers, the Bucks beat the Commanders this season, the Rams beat the Vikings. Which teams can do it again? Because it's hard to beat a team, obviously, 2 years in two consecutive times, but it's even harder for the 3. I don't know if there's any of those since Baltimore and Pittsburgh split. Pittsburgh is just a mess. But yeah, when you look at the NFC, I think it's very possible, and I think it's even realistic for, Detroit. Give them all the credit in the world. 1 seed, ridiculous. They've overcome just insane injuries, and they are a little bit healthier, so good for them, I suppose. But it's still not inconceivable that Detroit were to lose and Philly could even host the NFC Championship game. I know it's a long way to go, tons of hypotheticals. You could have things happen for you and everything else. But regardless, I would not rule out anybody, because I've seen some comments early going like, hey, yeah, we're looking forward to it. We're going to probably play Minnesota or probably play Tampa. I don't know. Like, those may be a little bit more of favorites based on the betting lines and everything else there, but it's close. The margin is incredibly thin. And we've seen teams where, I mean, at the beginning of the season, Tampa, beat Washington, I think 37-20 or something like that. It was a rout. It's not the same type of matchup here. Like, we've seen Tampa, they struggled against a Saints team last week. Maybe they're extra nerves and trying to take care of business. They lost to the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. I know Dallas had played a little bit better, but, we just absolutely boat raced them 40-7. So that's another point there. But yeah, it's every one of these games is so exciting to me. I am very interested, obviously, if Philly can take care of business. The best feeling in the world, I know that we're all right here as well, but the best feeling in the world will be Eagles win. We get to relax. We get to watch and see who is it that's going to be coming to the Linc, take in the Tampa and Washington game, and then obviously then Monday with the Rams and the Vikings, which, by the way, we'll be streaming at least one of those, but hopefully both, depending on schedules and everything else, for hanging out, assuming the Eagles win. So there you go.
I think we have a very real scenario I think the best case scenario for Philadelphia, win on Sunday, obviously, Rams beat Minnesota, and then Tampa goes ahead and beats the Washington Commanders. Send Tampa to Detroit, because they've obviously had problems, the Lions have, with the Bucs defense, as Philadelphia has, and bring the Rams back for a shootout in Philadelphia. I think that's probably the best case scenario, because it's likely that Detroit would beat the Bucs, a second time around, but it could be a close-fought, really tough game, and then maybe weaken the Lions a little bit before an NFC Championship game. So I would say that is my best case scenario if I had to pick who I wanted to play. Obviously, 2 weeks from now, we could get, wrecked by the Rams, and I could be regretting this. But I think I'd want to avoid Washington or Tampa. I would rather play the Rams if I had to pick.
Yeah. I think isn't it, because Tampa's...
Isn't Tampa the 4?
Tampa's 3, right? Because the Rams lost, they rested. I was going to say, I thought they were 3.
Okay.
So it's either we play Tampa...
So it's almost impossible.
The only way is if the Commanders could win.
Maybe.
And then you play the Rams. You play Rams, Commanders,
okay.
Go to Detroit.
That's right, because they didn't play versus the Seahawks, and so they sat down. So it makes more sense.
Sean McVay
Let's just beat Green Bay.
He didn't
How about
care,
that?
Right?
Let's just beat Green Bay. How about that?
We'll be fine. I'm with you. I know that you probably saw this too, but Brian Baldinger saying he's like, I'll take the Eagles over everybody. Like, I don't care who they play.
I would too right now.
Favorite.
Honestly, I look up and down the NFC, and I see flaws everywhere. And I think Detroit is obviously the scariest team, mainly due to the fact their offense is incredible. But when we talk about great offenses running into great defenses in the postseason, very rarely does the great offense wax the great defense. Normally it's close, and it can lean either way, but it's definitely not like, 41-7 is going to be a possibility versus the Lions. It'll be low scoring. It'll come down to who gets, the turnover at the right position, the right spot. I just think Philadelphia's defense can go crazy against the Lions defense. And I think Aaron Glenn's going to get a head coaching job. I have a lot of respect for some of those players, a lot of those players on defense. I think Philadelphia matches up very well with them. I think they match up pretty much well with everybody. The real stigma that we have right now is mobile quarterbacks, which would be Jaden Daniels, because Philly this season, minus Lamar Jackson for 3 quarters, I think they've done a pretty poor job against mobile quarterbacks. They're much better against the Jordan Loves of the world than they are the Jaden Daniels. The other Achilles heel has been Todd Bowles' defense. Like, those are the two kind of teams where you're like, should be fine. You would think you could roll the Washington Commanders, in round 3 after barely losing to them without Jalen Hurts, essentially.
Yeah.
But the Bucs have been an Achilles heel, and I think Tampa and Philadelphia would be a massive perk instead of 100-degree Tampa Bay weather in Week 4. But they would be very, very nerve-wracking to me, more so than a lot of these other teams on the list. And I think Minnesota, just to round out the thought, I worry about Sam Darnold, and I think the Eagles have the corners to match up against the passing attack with Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, and then it's just a matter of can you run onto that defense of the Minnesota Vikings. And with Saquon Barkley, I think you can do it on anybody
Easily. Yeah. There's not a doubt. That's why you also look at, especially if you're going to host in the Linc and it's cold weather, you lean on teams with the best offensive line in football with Saquon Barkley, a rested Saquon Barkley, a rested, not rusted, regardless if we're talking about quarterback or running. I couldn't believe.
Yeah.
I know that there's some concern with everything and people analyze every little bit to death, but I couldn't believe. I had comments of people going like, oh man, I don't know, this is probably not the right decision. Like, you shouldn't be resting Saquon. He's going to be sluggish and lethargic coming off. All Are you kidding me? You get an opportunity to rest a guy like Saquon Barkley, and you think he's going to come out not fresh, but instead lethargic and sluggish like that? You got to be kidding me. It's a
How is
very
Saquon
good
Barkley?
reason.
How was Saquon rested to start the season? About as rested as you can possibly be, having not played a game, and he went insane. I mean, he was a scoring machine against the Green Bay Packers, So, and I also think this benefits Philadelphia. We talk about playing teams multiple times in a season outside of the division, like playing Tampa or playing the Packers. Both teams are so different, but Philly, really, the pre-bye Eagles are a completely different football team than the post-bye Eagles. It's not even close. And so whatever Green Bay thought that they figured out in that game when they came back in the fourth quarter and at least made it semi-close, I don't know. I just don't know how much of that film you could watch. Now, that goes the same way, but it just feels like the Packers have been kind of the same team all season long, and now they're just minus Christian Watson and possibly have an injured Jordan Love. Philadelphia, we talked about it earlier, defensive line did not play that well. Bond had a good game. Dean really didn't. Slay kind of had a rough game, and I think the secondary, especially led by C.J. Gardner-Johnson, had a terrible tackling game as a whole. Fast forward to today, and the defensive line is one of the top units in the National Football League. You have what should have been an all-pro linebacker, but a Pro Bowl linebacker in Zach Bond. Nakobe Dean is leagues better than he was before the bye. Quinion and Slay have been lights out, and the safeties, the big factor, C.J. Gardner-Johnson has turned into a ball hawk and a tackling machine. It's just completely different than what Green Bay has seen, and I think that's going to be a massive factor in this game on Sunday.
Yeah. Hopefully, there's a very slim chance, but hopefully maybe Zach Bond can get the nod from the AP writers for the All-Pro.
Nice.
I doubt it because of the name recognition. It just doesn't happen. But maybe there's a chance. But I'm with you. They were coming into their own. It's actually perfect time for the Super Chat here from Hannah. Appreciate the 5. Says, biggest difference between this Eagles team versus 2023 or even 2022 is they play physical on both sides. Defense actually tackles tough to beat physicality.
Yeah, the defense is extremely physical, and they're way more physical than 2022. 2022's perks was the fact that they got a bunch of sacks, and sacks are fantastic, but as soon as sacks turn off, as you saw in the Super Bowl, your defense gets exposed. Make no doubt about it. The 2022 secondary versus this year's secondary, night and day. It's like an A+ versus a C-. And the reason they were better, or at least where they played well at times in 2022, was because they got so many sacks. But Patrick Mahomes lit this secondary up. What's his name? Sky Moore?
Yeah.
Lit us up. Kadarius Toney lit us up in the Super Bowl because we couldn't get pressure. This Eagle team gets pressure. They don't get as many sacks, but they play so much better defense behind the front four at the linebacker and the secondary level. I would take this year's defense over any Eagle defense I've seen, including 2017 over the past 2 decades, but guaranteed over the 2022 team. Now, I do think the offense, passing game in 2022 was better. The running game this year is way better, but the passing game difference is a lot closer than you would say the secondary difference from both the Super Bowl team in 2022 and then this year's team. So overall, I would take this team really without hesitating.
For sure. I agree. This is a better team. It's just a question of, where are they stacking up based on the rest of other teams around the league. But as we said, like there's issues, concerns, doubts, fears for really every side. I mean, even AFC wise, but like you don't worry about that at all until you get to the Super Bowl and then you figure it out then. But NFC's up for grabs. It'd be nice to be the 1 seed. It's crazy, a 14-3 team, and you're not a 1 seed, but that's just the way this year went. And you deal with it whenever it comes to that. But I'm confident. I don't know if I'm as confident as Albert. Maybe I should be. Albert with a 2 here says the Birds will beat the Packers 35-14.
That would be...
It'd be great.
It wouldn't shock me. I'll be honest. And again, like you and I texted, we're very nervous because anything can happen. You could come out and lay an egg. You could get, three bad turnovers, whatever. If the Eagles play at the level that we know that they can play, they can win this game 35-14, 31-14, 31-17. That can 100% be the actual score of this game. And it has to do with where the Eagles are at right now as a team and where the Packers are at as a football team as a whole. They are not the same red-hot juggernaut 5 seed that we saw in 2023 when they went to Dallas and just waxed the Cowboys. Very different teams in terms of this year and last year when it really in terms of momentum.
And people were still figuring out Jordan Love. Like there was tape out there, but you're kind of going like, hey, where are his weaknesses exactly? What do you take away? What do you force him to try to do? This year been a little bit different. I think that's why you're seeing a bit of a regression. He can still make plays, as we said.
Sure. But
you're right. It's a completely different year, completely different scenario. Gabriel here, Gabrielle, I'm sure I butchered that the first time, with a 5 says, per betting odds, which team this weekend do you think has the biggest chance being an upset and why? Let's go Birds. I'm ready for Eagles, Bills, or Ravens Super Bowl.
Okay. Don't
a
forget
good
Chiefs.
question.
Chiefs are going to be a problem too.
Yeah.
Upset this week. I think on both sides of the bracket, I think Denver definitely can upset the Buffalo Bills. That seems like a guarantee, or not a guarantee, but it would be my pick if I had to pick of any of them.
Okay.
And then probably Washington, right? I think Washington has a pretty good chance of upsetting Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has been wildly inconsistent through the past couple of weeks. So if I had to put money on it, which I don't know if I will, but Denver over Buffalo, just because Denver's defense is really good and they like cold weather, and so they're a really scary matchup. I'd hate to be the 2 seed if I was Buffalo. And then I'll say that the Commanders, just because of Jaden Daniels and the offense and what they potentially can do against the Bucs.
Okay, I like it. There you go. If you're considering to place a bet, by the way, obviously scan the QR code, use code Philly Special with Underdog, get up to $1,000 of bonus cash. Thomas and I'll have our picks and everything. Last week was unusual because we didn't know who was going to be playing, but we'll have those for the Eagles game as we're streaming that. I agree with you on the sense of Washington. I mean, it's a 3-point spread. I do think Denver has a chance. I think it's 8.5 is what the Bills are favored by. That seems crazy high.
It's a big number.
Broncos. I know it's in
big
Buffalo
number.
and Josh Allen, all this other stuff, but to be different, I will say I know this is like weird and kind of backwards, especially the way they're kind of limping in, but I'm going to say Houston. They've got a home game. They're playing the Chargers. Chargers favored by 3, but the way that Houston has looked lately, can't have a lot of people taking Houston plus 3. So maybe that's a Vegas line to tempt people. Maybe there's something to it, but I'll say Houston. I know it's not a massive upset, but we'll go Houston for the AFC.
Fair. Definitely possible. By the way, just quick little Underdog preview pick. I was working on some stuff with Underdog today. I am loving Josh Jacobs under 98.5 pass and rushing yards. I am starting to really, really love the idea that Jacobs is going to have a really rough game on Sunday. So that's that. I also like Goedert higher than 33 receiving yards. So 2 early lines you could jump in on with Underdog.
Get him back in the mix.
But if Jacobs is under 98, Josh, this is a blowout. If he's under 100, this is a blowout.
Yes.
So let it just be said.
The other one, I'll just go ahead and throw one out there as well that I was taking a look at is Saquon rushing attempts, because I think that the Eagles, regardless of game situation, are not going to shy away from Saquon. So I believe it was, I could be wrong. I think it was like 24.5 rushing attempts. It feels like this is one. It does not matter. He's fully rested. You got the O-line, so he'd get those carries. All right, real quickly before we do and wrap here, 2 from Johnny Calhoun. Didn't see a comment. Appreciate that. Him with another super chat said thoughts on Myles Garrett. Maybe they take Huff.
Ask us after the season.
Fleecing them.
We got plenty of time after the season to talk about Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
plenty of time. I don't know how you afford
different.
Myles Garrett. Let's say that.
It takes a lot more than Huff too. Maybe they're idiots, I suppose, but that's not. Hannah with another 2 said way to rattle love blitz, or the way to rattle love blitz and send the house.
Yep,
Sure, he's
I think they will.
Not been good against pressure.
Yep.
Definitely fair.
Yep.
Okay, but as we wrap here, I will ask you real quickly for score predictions. As you're doing that, though, I got a draw for this winner. I know I was going to do it later. We obviously went earlier because the Jalen Hurts news. So as you're thinking about that, I'm going to put this on the screen. Good luck to all. This is tickets for this weekend. So good luck to everyone here. I'll announce it in the next video as well. If they're not present on the stream, it would be great if you are. But here you go. Good luck. See who this is.
Do it.
And the spinner is spinning. And there we go. Dakota Warren 8813 with the Go Birds comment. Shout out to Dakota. You have won 2 tickets to this weekend's playoff game, the wild card round.
Nice.
All you need to do, as always, is email me at thephillyspecialshow@gmail.com or DM me on social media. I will drop the link here as well in the video. If you're watching it back, I'll also comment on the previous video that you did comment on. So lots of opportunities. You have until Friday during the Yeah, Friday night live stream. If you don't do it by then, I'm gonna have to give it away to somebody else who can obviously use them. So just contact me.
Quickly. We have 2 minutes. I got a hard out. Got stuff going on here.
Yep.
Philadelphia signed defensive back Lewis Kine to the active roster, former first-round pick of the Vikings. So we'll have more on that, I'm sure, tomorrow. But the Eagles did make a last-minute roster move. Interesting. It's a DB to the active roster. They had spots there to fill, but we'll break that down more in the future. It's not going to be anything crazy, but maybe some insider info, potentially. You never know.
Okay. I don't hate it. I don't mind it. Any last bit predictions? Obviously, Wednesday, we still got other news to come and all this with Jordan Love and everything. But as of today, score prediction for the game?
31-21, Philly.
Okay. Stick with that there. I'm a little bit closer, a little bit lower scoring. I know it's maybe, I don't know, doubtful on my side concerning. But I'm going to say 27-21. So we're still close-ish on the scores. But there you go.
There you go.
Appreciate it, everybody. As always, make sure to like, subscribe. Tons more content, giveaways, ridiculous stuff. We appreciate you guys. Could not do it without you. If you're just getting caught up, Jalen Hurts at practice today. We'll see when he's officially back, but probably limited at this point. Fantastic news. And as always, we'll catch you guys next time. Go Birds.
Go Birds.